Hi friends, welcome to Chapter 5, Lesson 4. Go ahead and work through these review problems and check your answers when you're done. Okay, you should have gotten these answers here. If perhaps you forgot to say whether it was associative of addition or communicative of multiplication, that's fine. Just remember that, that those properties can apply to both addition and multiplication. And if you got 3 or more incorrect, go ahead and input that on the next question, and then I will need to meet with you before you move on to the next lesson. Okay, today we're going to look at another property that we're going to use, which is called the distributive property. And here is the principle. The distributive property states that to multiply a sum or a difference by a number, you multiply each term inside the parentheses by the number outside the parentheses. Okay, so in letters, it looks like this. You've got sum, right? You've got an addition problem inside the parentheses. What we're going to do, and then you also have a term on the outside that tells you you're multiplying everything inside the parentheses, that addition problem, by the number that's on the outside. How you can do this is multiply A times B and add that to A times C. And so you do the first one, you distribute this multiplication across the problem. So A times B plus A times C. And again, you can do that with subtraction as well if it's a difference inside of the parentheses. So in this case, right, you have 4 times 6, 4 times 2, you add those two together. And work it through that way. Same thing with the subtraction. Okay, so let's see how this works out. You use the distributive property to evaluate 8 times 9 plus negative 9 plus 4. So again, we're basically expanding this problem into 2 separate problems. Now that seems like it's not necessary, but you'll see here in just a minute why this is helpful. So you take 8 first of all times negative 9, and then you take 8 times 4, you add those two together, and you get an answer of negative 40. Negative 40. Now, a way to check yourself on this, if you just have numbers like we do in this problem, and there's no letters as terms, like you don't have a 9x or you don't have an A in there anywhere, you can add and follow the order of operations. You can add what's inside the parentheses, which would in this case would be negative 5, multiply that by the outside, and you still get the same answer. Okay, now there's a reason why we are doing it where we expand it. Okay, so make sure that you work the problem through, use the distributive property, not necessarily the order of operations in this case. So go ahead and do this one. Check your answer when you're done. Okay, you should have got an answer of 105. 7 times 3 plus 7 times 12. Work those through and then add them together. Get 105. Okay, use the distributive property to rewrite 4x plus 7. 4 times x plus 7. Okay, so first of all, we're going to expand this problem out. Take this this term here and multiply it times each of the individual terms on the inside of the parenthesis. You get 4x, you get 47. Put that together and you get 4x plus 28. And that's all you can do. That's as far as you can go. See, this is why the distributive property becomes helpful, because you may not be able to solve for a complete answer every time. And if you would have just done, you couldn't have done anything, because x plus 7 is just x plus 7. There's no further solving to happen there, so then you just have to multiply both terms by the term on the outside to get 4x plus 28. Okay, go ahead and work this one through on your own. Check your answer when you're done. Should have got an answer of 11x plus 55. So 11 times x plus 11 times 5. That's 11x plus 55. Okay, use the distributive property to rewrite 6 times p minus 5 One step that you can do here is you can rewrite subtraction problems as addition problems. Okay, when we have a subtraction on the inside here, we do p minus 5, it also is true to say it this way, p plus negative 5. Okay, so p minus 5 is the same thing as p plus negative 5. Okay, and that becomes helpful here in a minute. So then you work the distributive property out, take 6 times p plus 6 times negative 5, and you get an answer of 6p plus negative 30. Now we'll reverse what we did here when we turned a subtraction problem into an addition problem. Now we have it as an addition problem with a negative number, but we can reverse that around and make it back to subtraction. So now it's 6p minus 30. 6p minus 30. Now the reason why we do this here is if you would have gone through and taken the original 6p minus 5, okay, you would have multiplied this 6p, and then what do we put in the middle here? Minus, so 6p, right, and then minus, you'd have to do 5 times 6, and that's a positive number, right? And you could bump that down and you have 6p minus 30, but let's look in the next slide and we'll find out, or do this one first and then we'll find out why you want to potentially switch it in that way. Okay, you should have got an answer of 5p minus 40. So 5p, that part is simple, but let's change this to 5p plus negative 8. Okay, so we get 5p plus negative 40, and then we change that into 5p minus 40. Okay, use the distributive property to rewrite negative 2 times x minus 8. Okay, so again, we want to rewrite that problem, negative 2 times x minus 8 as negative 2x plus negative 8. Rewrite it that way. That way we can go through and multiply negative 2 times x plus negative 2 times negative 8. You get an answer of negative 2x plus 16. Okay, so in this case, negative 2x minus 8 is what we're trying to solve. Okay, if I would have just worked this through negative 2x and then negative 2, and then do I have a plus here? Do I have a minus there in between those two? Not really sure, right? But if we turn this original problem into an addition problem, then it's really clear what we're supposed to do. So if it's negative 2x, negative 2 times x plus negative 8, then I know for sure it's negative 2x plus, that's 16. And that's exactly how we end. Okay, so depending on what you have inside those parentheses, it's always going to be helpful to switch that into an addition problem if it's a subtraction problem on the inside of the parentheses. Okay, so go ahead and work your way through this one and check your answer when you're done. You should have gotten negative 3x plus 6. Negative 3x plus 6. All right, use the distributive property to rewrite 5 times negative 3x plus 7y. So now we have, we're adding these number or letter terms in with the numbers. So we use the distributive property, 5 times negative 3x plus 5 times 7y. And you solve each of those individually. Negative 15x, because we'll notice we're using the distributive property here in a sense too, where it's not just 15, negative 15, but it's negative 15x. And then 5 times 7 is 35y. So you simplify that out, and that's your answer. Go ahead and work this one then and check your answer when you're done. Should have got an answer of negative 36x plus 4. 4 times negative 9x is negative 36x, and 4 times 1 is 4. All right, what about this? Use the distributive property to rewrite 1/3 times x minus 6. So we're going to go ahead and change that problem from subtraction on the inside of the parentheses to addition of a negative. And so it's 1/3 times x plus negative 6. Then we use the distributive property 1/3 x right here. And then 1/3 times negative 6, which is the same thing as negative 6 over 1. So then you multiply that straight across, and you get an answer of 1/3 x plus negative 2. This part right here, just as a review, would look like this. You multiply that straight across. Negative 6 over 3 is a division problem. You get the answer of negative 2. Okay. And then we switch it back, obviously, to our subtraction. Notice we still have the addition there. Addition of a negative is subtraction. So you can just get rid of that positive sign and turn that into a subtraction. Now you go ahead and try this one. Should have got an answer of 1/4 x minus 4. 1/4 x minus 4. 1/4 times x, let's do it this way, plus a negative 16. 1/4 x, 1/4 plus 1/4 times negative 16 over 1. Multiply that straight across, and it's negative 16 over 4, which equals negative 4. So we have 1/4 x plus negative 4, and plus a negative is the same thing as subtraction. 1/4 x minus 4. Okay, very good. Now, how does this work out in real life? Where does this become helpful in the real world? This is a good example right here. So Mr. Ito needs to buy a batting helmets for the baseball team. The helmets he plans to buy are $19.95 each. Find the total cost if Mr. Ito needs to buy 9 batting helmets for the team. Okay, so $19.95 is sort of a difficult number to do multiplication with, especially when you're doing 9 times 9. If you're standing in the sports store here, doing all that long multiplication out is going to be difficult. So we can actually split the problem up into 2 different parts and make the multiplication easier. So we're going to rename $19.95 as $20 minus 5 cents. You get that? So $19.95 is the same thing as 20 minus 5 cents, and then we'll use the distributive property to find the total cost mentally. Okay, so if $20 minus 5 cents is the cost, is $19.95, and we need 9 of those, then what we can do is use the distributive property to do 9 times 20 minus 9 times 5 cents. We can do that in mental math. We get 180 minus 45 cents, and then we simply subtract those, and we see that the answer is 179.55. Right? And we did all that mentally without having to do any sort of long multiplication or anything. So go ahead and work this through and see how this might be helpful on your own here. Okay, so you should have gotten an answer of $159. Again, this time, maybe it's easier to do $10 plus 60 cents. So the cost of $10.60 is the same thing as $10 plus 60 cents. There's 15 students that are going to be buying. You distribute that out, 15 times 10 plus 15 times 6. You work that through and you get an answer of 159. Okay, so we learned about the distributive property today, how we can use that to expand algebraic expressions, and also how it works out in the real world when you want to use mental math, but it might be a little bit too difficult to do a multiplication problem on your own.